Hi there, Internet. I just wanted to make a mini review, a sort of an opinion piece about the Leica M6 after using it for about 2.5 years, and just address some of the more sort of controversial points around its design that I see people write about and post online. So, first and foremost, I won't go over it too much, but it's a great camera, wonderful. It's my favorite camera. Great design, easy to use, everything's in the right place. The basic function for anybody who's used an analog camera before is not going to be any surprise. You're going to like it. The rangefinder system works great. Make sure you know before you go and invest in a Leica that you like rangefinder focusing, and also make sure you like fully manual cameras. Because if you've come from an automatic sort of digital world of photography, an analog camera that's fully manual is going to seem a bit laborious at first, and you might get into it, but you might not. So just make sure you like fully manual. Okay. Like I said, it's got very standard controls. You don't really need to read the manual, maybe just to see how the meter works, because it's slightly different than, say, an SLR, which is a matrix metering, center weighted. This is more of a semi-spot meter. So most of the metering happens right in the middle in a very small area. So I usually focus on a mid-tone, or sorry, meter from a mid-tone. The other camera that it's compared to is the other M6, the TTL. And most of the controversies are around the shutter speed dial. So on the M6 Classic, which is this is the Classic, the shutter speed dial, as you can see, is relatively small. And on the TTL, it's a bit bigger. And a lot of people have sort of mentioned that it's a lot easier to change the shutter speed with just one finger on the TTL. And some people have even said it's impossible or very difficult to change the shutter speed on the Classic like this. Well, it's not at all for me. Very, very easy. I'm a little bit of pressure, and I can feel the gnarled edge of the dial here, but it's very easy for me. I think maybe wearing gloves it might be a bit tricky, but I can raise the camera to my eye and change the shutter speed, no problem. So I don't know what the big deal is. The other controversy you get with the TTL model that I've heard about is battery drain. Some people have reported that if you leave the batteries in and you don't turn off the camera, when you use the camera literally the next day, the batteries will be flat. And some people haven't said that. Maybe it differs from some models to other different editions of the same model, because they do tweak the design here and there, through the years. Battery drain on this camera is not a problem at all. In fact, the meter doesn't really work when the light level is really low. And what happens is if you touch the button to start the meter, it'll just flash on for a split second and then stop, and then that's it. I think some models, including the later models of the M6 Classic, the meter will stay on for quite a while, maybe like 10 seconds or something like that. And if the button was continually being pressed in a bag or something like that, then the meter would come on and the battery would drain. But on this camera, this particular one, that's not a problem. And I've had the same batteries in for a long time and they've been fine. Okay. The other thing that people talk about a lot is the viewfinder and rangefinder magnification. On this, it's the standard 0.72, which is slightly wide angle. I find that to be really great, very intuitive to use, and it works perfectly with a 35mm lens. The 35mm frame lines kind of fill the viewfinder up to about 75%, and there's like kind of a 25% border around the edge, so you can see around it, and it's great for composition. Obviously, with the 50, the frame line is going to be smaller, but even so, you've got quite a lot of space around the frame line, but I still find the 50mm frame line very usable and very intuitive. And after all, a 50mm lens is tighter. It's slightly telephoto, so this, it makes sense that it works that way. I think that the frame lines on the 0.72 are great. Some people want the 0.85 because it's got higher magnification and you're going to get a bigger frame line with a 50mm, and that makes sense. If that works for you, that's awesome. I don't wear glasses, and I'm able to see the 28 frame line on this model on the 0.72 very easily. I know people who wear glasses have trouble that way, so you just got to decide for yourself which magnification works for you. But from my point of view, the 0.72 is about perfect. Now the flare, the rangefinder patch flare that people talk about when the rangefinder patch disappears in side lighting or something like that, I've never had that problem. Never ever. One thing I do make sure of is that I keep the viewfinder window and all the windows on the front clean with a cloth, with a lens cloth, because when they get fingerprints and stuff, that can actually lead, just like a lens, it can lead to flare. So maybe that's part of the problem, or maybe some models are worse than others, I don't know. But I've never personally had a problem with that, so I'm not concerned about it. I covered the meter. It's a semi-spot sort of design, works very well. The arrows for metering are another thing that's quite controversial, and the TTL model has 3 lights in the metering system. So the center light comes on when you're at perfect exposure, whereas in this model, the classic, the 2 lights light up simultaneously when you're at correct exposure. Some people say it's counterintuitive with the shutter speed dial direction. I don't find that, because when the light on the left is lit, it's underexposed, you push it to the left. When the light on the right is on, it's overexposed, you push to the right. Works perfectly for me. And in terms of it looking like arrows, I just put that to the aperture ring. So when the arrow on the left is underexposed pointing to the right, you turn this to the right to open up the aperture. For me, it's not an issue. I've been using this camera for 2.5 years, and I don't think the metering system is in any way bad. I've never used the TTL. Maybe it's better, I don't know. But the 3 light system doesn't give you any more information. It doesn't tell you any more than this system, the 2 light system. So to me, it's a moot point. Doesn't really make a lot of difference. I've got everything I need with this camera. The metering system's great. So, and the batteries, like I said, last a hell of a long time. Okay. So the other thing that people talk about is the winding lever. This is it for winding the film and cocking the shutter, and nice and smooth. And you can have it in different positions when it's cocked. You can have it sticking straight out, which is great if you're wearing gloves and you want to, work quickly. You can push it in all the way, and you can also swivel this out and leave it like just sticking out. The end swivels, and for me that's great because it's just there if you want it, and then you put it in your bag, you tuck it in. It's great to have, several different positions that you can sort of play with and work out what you prefer for different things. Like I say, keeping it in your bag, wearing gloves, all these different things. So I think it's great. I think it's a great design. Some people want to change this for the all metal design that you get in the MP. Personally, I've got no need to do that. I don't feel that there's anything that needs to change. Loading the film is, tricky compared to a normal SLR where you open the back. I would just say watch a video on how to do it properly when you're first starting. Make sure the film canister is all the way in, because it can sort of stick a little bit when it's not fully all the way in, about like a ½ inch or something like that, or less than that. And you'll find it, and then you just wiggle it and it goes all the way in, and then you bring the film into the spool and then close the back and wind on, and that's pretty much it. So just practice makes perfect. Same with anything else. One other thing that's very controversial about Leicas in general is the red dot fever that people talk about, that if you're walking around with a Leica, people see the red dot and thieves are going to come and people notice and blah, blah, blah. I found that not to be the case at all. And I think putting tape over your camera on various points like the red dot and the Leica engraving, I think that's more in people's minds than it is anything to do with reality. People are walking around with all kinds of crazy stuff these days. Cameras, tablets, phones. I mean, phones are worth $800 these days. And hoverboards and all kinds of stuff. I don't think anybody cares. And thieves, they're out for what what they can get. If they see somebody with a camera and you leave it lying around, they're going to steal it. And I don't think they really know much about the brand, or, you know, Nikon used to be the big name, and now that's sort of just the same as any other brand, really. So anyway, red dot fever, I don't believe in it. And the bottom line is, any camera that you're going to use, you have to get used to. Every camera has its foibles and its little ways. And especially a fully manual, a totally manual camera like this, where you've got to set the shutter speed, you've got to set the aperture, you've got to do this, do that, load the film, wind the film, all this stuff. Just learn your camera. If you're going to invest in something that costs quite a lot of money, like most Leicas do, it's worth spending some time learning how to operate it and just getting to know it and refining your technique. And that's how you're going to enjoy the camera. Okay, that's all I wanted to say, and have a great day. Thank you.